Good day, everybody. So good to see everyone's smiling faces. We've just finished up a unit where we looked at two different ways to organize power: democracy and authoritarianism. We saw that a government or a leader can be more or less authoritarian depending on the policies and actions they take. We looked at the classic examples of authoritarianism in Hitler and Stalin and Mussolini. Those were the easy ones. But then we looked at lesser known examples during the era of World War II, Getulio Vargas and Francisco Franco, and determined how authoritarian they were. We then looked at two modern day examples, Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Donald Trump, whom we put on trial for being authoritarian.
These two ways to organize power, democracy and authoritarianism, are going to be present in our next unit because the two major powers that emerge after World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union, are going to try to spread these ideas around the world. The United States attempted to spread democracy and the economic system of capitalism around the world, while the Soviet Union spread a more authoritarian outlook and the economic system of communism. The fight to spread their ideas, called the Cold War, will be what we look at for much of quarter four. One country won. Can you guess which? And some really smart people said that it was the end of history, that freedom for all would spread around the world, and that there would be peace on Earth.
Well, that obviously didn't happen. Democracy and authoritarianism are how individual countries organize power within their own borders, but it doesn't say much about how countries interact with each other. That is what we're going to look at this quarter. Who has global power and how is it used? What are they motivated by? I've already let the cat out of the bag by saying two major powers emerged after World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union. But were there others that were close to being major powers during the Cold War? What are the global powers now that this Cold War is over? Before we can answer these questions, we have to know what a global power is. We are going to use the term superpower to describe a country that has a lot of power and influence in how the world works. We're going to use three criteria to determine if the country is a superpower and how these superpowers work.
Here are the criteria we are going to use. A country must have all of these to be considered a superpower. To be a superpower, 1, a country must be able to consistently influence multiple countries around the world. Think you want something and you get your way. 2, other countries rely on the country. Think you provide for other countries. 3, a country must want to be a superpower. Think, I have my reasons for wanting to be a superpower. Let's take a look at each a little more in depth. The first criteria says that a country must be able to consistently influence multiple countries around the world. This means that the country usually gets what it wants from other countries. How do they get what they want? They can get what they want by using three things. 1, they can use military force. A superpower will have a big military that they can use to force other countries to do what they want. They can use the military directly by bombing or sending troops into another country, or they can use the military indirectly by threatening with their navy or nuclear weapons. 2, they can use economics or trade to get what they want. They can do things like pay off countries, provide or refuse to provide resources to countries who rely on them, or they can put taxes on the exports of other countries, which decreases their economy. 3, they can use soft power, meaning they can convince other countries to accept similar cultural practices and beliefs through providing a good example. If the superpower country does well, other countries will want to copy the superpower. The superpower then attempts to convince the other countries that the superpower's way of life is the best way of life through media and other forms of propaganda. These are the three things superpowers use to influence other countries. But what does it mean to influence another country? It means that the other country, either the leaders or the people, changes their behavior based on the actions of the superpower. Therefore, superpowers can influence another country in the following areas. 1, politics. Superpower countries can convince other countries to change their structure of government. Like, if the country were authoritarian, the superpower could convince it to become a democratic country. Or the superpower could convince another country to get rid of a leader and replace it with another leader of their choosing. The superpower could also convince another country to change its laws or policies. Or it influences the other country by providing it with weapons with which to protect itself or fight against another country or group. 2. Economics. Superpower countries can influence the infrastructure of another country by helping it build roads and ports and hospitals and schools, or can influence another country by helping it develop its industry. Superpower countries can influence trading relationships and support trade networks that allow countries to get raw materials to turn into manufactured goods in factories. 3. Culture. Superpower countries can change the behaviors of people in other countries. They can influence what the people want to wear, like jeans, and what they eat, like cheeseburgers and Coca-Cola. The people in other countries begin to consume what the superpower countries consume and produce. The beliefs and behaviors of the superpower become the beliefs and the behaviors of the people in other countries. Let's use a hypothetical example to see how all of this works. Let's say the country A is a superpower. Other countries, X and Y, are just regular old countries. Let's say that country A wants a resource that country X has, but country X doesn't really want to give country A that resource. Well, country A is a superpower, and superpowers get what they want, so they would probably first start with economic influence or pressure. They would put taxes on things that country X exports to country A. Or country A would stop supplying country X with something that they were exporting to them. If country X still wouldn't give up the resource, country A could start sending their navy close to country X's coast, providing an indirect military threat. If country X still wouldn't give up their resource and country A is desperate for it, then country A could, as a last resort, send troops into country X in attempts to take over country X and secure the resource for themselves. So, what did country A used to influence country X? Well, they used economics and trade and military force, and what they influenced in country X were economics. Let's do another example. Let's say that country Y has a leader that country A does not get along with. Country Y's leader is super authoritarian, and country A is just not down with that. Country Y consumes a lot of country A movies and other media, so country A could start showing them a lot more movies about the power of democracies and noble democratic leaders in hopes that the people rise up and get rid of the leader they don't like. That would be country A using soft power to get what they want. Or country A could provide weapons to a rebel group inside the country to change the leadership of the government. Country Y is influenced then to change their leader and their political structure. So, what did country A use to influence country Y? Well, they used soft power first, and then they could also possibly use economic power or trade. And what was influenced in country Y? Politics.
This was only the first criteria for being a superpower. A country must be able to consistently influence multiple countries around the world. A country wants something, and they get their way. Remember that there are 2 other criteria, but we're going to save those for another video. For now, your job is to come up with examples in history or in the present where you have seen superpower influence in another country in a way we have discussed here.